Greetings and salutations. This is Chief Security Officer Don Corleone of American Muscle Security LLC in conjunction with stackbooksfoundation LLC, in conjunction with Parent Group Confidential LLC. Salute to everybody that's with us during Operation Warforged. This is Operation Get Well USA, and I am your host. It's Donnie the Guard, badge number 11516466472. Bodyguard, whistleblower, watchdog, search party coordinator, means special police. I did say police. Today is Friday, November 21st. It's 10:08 in the AM, and I'm at the Carnegie Public Library, and I see no urgency, I feel no emergency, all cars are welcome right along. Welcome to the show. This is Donnie Talks. So, let's talk about the brave new world, okay? What's the brave new world? We're the brave new world, okay? You're 40. I'm 40. I'm 45 actually, but you're in your 40s. I'm in my 40s. It was a whole completely different world in our time coming up, as adolescents, as teenagers, as people that are in their early 20s, 30s. Do you remember what is your, not do you remember, because you do remember or something's wrong. What is your memories of your 30s? What is your memory of your 20s? What is your memory of your adolescence? Not everybody does remember their teenage years and their adolescence as vivid as other people do, because people have traumatic, things happen to them as a child, as I did. But what causes some people to be more depressed than others? Are you more depressed than you were as in your childhood, or your early 20s, your early 30s, or have you made a significant improvement? Were you at all depressed as a child or not? So what is this discussion about? Staying ahead of the curve. When you grow up, like me, I had a good amount of friends in junior high, in high school, in college. But the more you get older, the more you find out who your real friends are. You've heard that. And the fact is, because people get tired of hanging around people. Like, even if it's your best friend in the world, you love hanging out with them. They're funny, or they're attractive in some way. They make you think. Eventually, you heard it all, seen it all, done it all before. You've experienced. You've ridden every roller coaster with this person. You've experienced your ups and downs with this person's makeups or breakups, whether it's a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a husband, a wife, a best friend, or just an acquaintance, a co-worker, etc. Right? What kind of world did I grow up in? Like I said, I grew up in the 80s. Well, I was born in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s. New millennium hit. I was in my 20s. I'm from Pittsburgh, okay? I was born in Shadyside Hospital. My pops, he was attending school here in Pittsburgh after he transferred from another school. And he just, as far as what I know, would prefer, him and my mother would prefer that we grew up in the suburbs to keep us out of trouble. So we moved to the suburbs of Pittsburgh, and that's where we grew up. It was slow. The majority of the town was white, middle class. There are some other Afro-American families that lived there, but not too many. Good school, good education. A lot of opportunities. I played football, wrestling, baseball, but I took a ballet class. And I took it for agility purposes because I was a running back. But not every town you have that. And even if you do, it's open to everybody. Or it's not that it wasn't open to everybody in the small town. It's just that everybody knows everybody in the small town that I grew up. Around 16, 17, I moved to a little bit of bigger city. About 18, I moved to New York. Okay. New York was too fast for me. So I moved to Philly, and that's where I began to go to college. If I would have stayed in New York, I would have ended up going to college in New York, and I would have ended up having to work and go to school at the same time, because there really is no other alternative. You're definitely getting money somehow. The choice of going to school is up to you, but in New York, everybody's getting money somehow. Either you're getting money, or the government is providing money for you as far as SSI, SSD, um, and somebody's taking care of you. So a lot of New Yorkers take care of themselves, just like any other city, Philly, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, any small town. But the bigger the city you get to, the 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 more, it's like they say, high risk, high reward. The more people are doing more extreme things to take care of themselves, to pay their bills. There's a lot of crime, etc. But you know, when you move out on your own, you're really taking care of yourself, no matter where you live. So generally, what I'm saying is, I don't really truly believe that there is much of a difference as some people who weren't able to take care of themselves before the recession, or be as independent uh, prior to the recession, um, in comparison to afterwards. So what I'm saying is, if depending on how old you are, if you weren't independent prior to the recession and you're still not independent now, you very well might never be. You very well might need somebody to take care of you. And there's a couple different reasons why I want to get into this. Security blankets, okay? Some people need an applause from somebody. Some people need a pat in the head from somebody. Some people need the validation and the confirmation from other people to continue on that treadmill, going to work. Um, you know, Getting up in the morning, doing their chores, um, showing up to places where you need to show up to, whether be it school, be it just hanging out with your friends, etc., etc. And this differs. You're a guy, you want to be a mechanic, okay? No big deal. Nobody has any problems with anybody wanting to be a mechanic. Mechanics can afford to chip in for the beer. Mechanics can afford to chip in for any party favor. Let's say you have a legal license to smoke weed. Nobody has a problem. You can afford to pay the rent as if you want to be somebody's room. If the it's on the table to be somebody's roommate, or you just want to stay in that ecosystem where you started from. Let's say it's with your parents, with your family, some sibling, or you're with a girlfriend who the discussion is, so it's your first year in college. So what are you going to school for? Oh, I want to be a mechanic. Okay, so you just don't want to go to college. You want to go to a technical school. That's cool. I can dig that. So all of a sudden, this person can see themselves being with you in the future more so than before, but in their mind, they see you waking up in the morning and going to work as a mechanic, as opposed to getting up in the morning and going to work as a firefighter or a police officer, or, God forbid, a rapper. Okay? Now, when I say God forbid, you could say that when it comes to being a police officer if somebody dreads dating a police officer, if somebody dreads their sibling becoming a police officer or their roommate being a police officer, because the word police technically means lord over, Gestapo, impose, pry into, okay, investigate. When people think that, they're like, oh my God, this person is going to be overbearing, depending, on who you're talking to. But before we get into the think like a cop, aspect of this conversation, let's think like an artist for a minute, okay? It's not necessarily the best news in the world that your friend wants to be an artist, right? Let's think about it. You're in your first ecosystem. You're in high school. When I first started to rap, I wasn't the coolest dude, okay? It was my senior year when I started to get cooler. I moved to a town where hip-hop was acceptable. Where I was from, rock and roll was a predominant music that was listened to, top 40, okay? But even if I wanted to be in a rock band or a rock star, that necessarily doesn't sit right with everybody. Let's think about it. What are the main components to every society, okay? When you're thinking adults, what do you have? You have doctors, you have lawyers, you have the people that work in the fast food chain, and then you have your everyday blue-collar workers, which are the roll-up-your-sleeves, mechanic, sanitation, people that take out people's trash, custodians, firefighters, the middle ground, right? Main Street. Okay? Bus drivers, truck drivers, they make good money, but not like a doctor, not like a lawyer. And then a police officer, nobody really, like, when you think, how much money does a police officer make? People don't really think that. If you ask, like, you do a consensus and you ask people in town, how much do you think a police officer makes? This is a good. I'm going to do it one of these days with a group of people, whether be it my student organization or any volunteer. How much do you think a police officer makes on an annual basis? It's people really don't know. Like, it's enough to do it, but to put a pinpoint and exact number on it, people don't technically know. The actual answer, has been for some time approximately 50 grand a year, 50, 60 grand a year. Back in the day, it was more so 20 to 40 grand a year, but now it's more so 50 to 60. I think it's pretty much still somewhere near the same. The longer you stay in, the more so it gets to that higher number. What does a lawyer make on an annual basis if they have a lot of cases? 100 grand a year to 200 grand a year, depending. What do you do? Do you do corporate law? Do you do criminal law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Okay. But let's jog back a little bit. Okay. Artists, right? You're sitting at a lunch table, okay? You're developing the skill of being able to make a song, okay? You haven't found a beat maker, or maybe you have, but you haven't established a relationship where you've put out enough albums. Wherever you're growing up, you're the Eric B. and Rakim of your town, of your high school, of your college, of your work environment, okay? You're the Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff. Up until you establish albums, you come out with an album and people can place your face with this person's face, or your name with this person's name, your identity with this person's identity. You're that, like you're you're what's known as a question mark. Okay, so oh well, this person's an artist, but I doubt they're gonna make it. The word doubt comes up a lot. I doubt they're gonna go anywhere with it. This is probably just a flash in the pan. Okay, so but you put out an album and it does good. Okay, and then people they like, oh well, actually, believe it or not, like this guy's actually pretty good, or the album was pretty good, or it did numbers. Okay, prior to, and this is why this all is going to make sense whenever you're talking about staying ahead of the curve, the brave new world, etc., etc. Because the brave new world and staying ahead of the curve, nobody can really pinpoint in detail who's ahead of the curve and who's not, who's the brave new world and who's an old fogey, who's retro, etc. until now, because of technology and the going viral. Okay, in my time, I grew up prior to MySpace. So that may sound old, but it's really not that long ago. Okay, so around high school, MySpace came out. No, 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 no. A little later than that. Just like in between high school and college, MySpace came out. Okay, then Facebook, etc., etc. YouTube was along the lines of in between both of those, but YouTube was more so a tool that people used that were already in the industry. It was integrative for anybody who's not in the industry to cross the threshold of being discovered and being in the industry, but it was more so a tool for the people that already made it. Okay, this is MTV era. This is VH1 era. This is BET era. All those things are virtually a thing of the past now. Okay, except Facebook. Instagram wasn't even out. Okay, so the social network changed a lot. But so in other words, those things weren't. It's not that they weren't accessible. They weren't something that was being used a lot. People didn't know that much about them. But once people started finding out about them, okay, there's a formula to going viral. More people started going viral. So there started being a separation between groups of people. Like, this person is not just cool. This person is going places. I'm riding. I'm not only riding their coattails. I'm jumping on the bandwagon. Okay? Bandwagon. Okay. So if you have a bandwagon, what is that? You have a platform. Okay? Not too many people have a platform. What does that mean? You're established. Okay? Remember that word. Established. Okay? Because these things go in hand. In times of past, people think of the establishment as the government, but the establishment is just whoever's established, if you want to generalize. Okay? People that heed and abide to what the powers that be say, and the powers that be themselves, etc. Okay? And then people that don't, and then people that don't in an extreme way by committing crime and quote unquote fighting the power literally. Okay? Those are the two extremes. Okay? But let's go back to platform. You have a platform. What's a platform? You have a website, or your identity is significantly recognizable on the social networks that are out there. But in a more tangible realm, what's really a platform? Who do the guys want to be friends with? Who do the chicks want to be their man? A guy with a car, platform. A guy with an apartment, platform. A guy with a job, platform. That's a platform. In the real world, the chicks will settle for a guy with one or more of those three things. Anything else, you're a question mark, I'm a question mark, everybody's a question mark. This is known, right? So, but in the world of the dreamers, the artists, the freelancers, the wannabe entrepreneurs, to have a record deal, you have a platform. To have an album out, you have a platform. And those are two huge extremes. To be an artist, like all those things, like, okay, if you have what's known as a dope boy chain, right? You have a platform. Your chain makes you a platform. As ridiculous as this notion is, there's a lot of people that believe this. They walk down the street and they're constantly dreaming of getting a chain so they can look down at it every 5 seconds and then look up and expect to see a guy looking like, wow, man, nice chain. Or walk down the street, people like, yo, that's dope. Yo. Same thing with people with tattoos, okay? There's people that, let's say they just work a regular 9-to-5 job, fast food chain, or maybe they don't. Maybe they sell butt. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they work, any job, right? They work, but they don't have what's known as a career. They have a job, but they don't have a career. So they don't feel like they have an identity. They get a tattoo, suddenly they feel they have an identity. They're wearing, yesterday they were wearing long sleeves, today they're wearing short sleeves because they want somebody to compliment their tattoo. Oh, yo, man, nice. All right? But that's a dream, okay? You can't stand on a tattoo. I can't move in with you and live in your tattoo. That's your dream. You live in your tattoo, okay? I can't pull my car into your dope boy chain as if it's a garage. That's your dream. You live in your dope boy chain. I may live in my car, and if I do, it's not going to help me to coexist with you because you're banking on your chain. I'm banking on a garage, or hopefully an apartment, so I don't have to live in my car, so I don't have to live in your garage. Okay? So let's jog back a little bit. Okay? Prior to the dope boy chain, prior to the car, prior to the platforms, is a dreamer sitting at a lunch table with some notebooks, and there's some people sitting at the table, 2 tables over there, and they're already established as far as a reputation. The reputation is the lily pad before the platform that's an actual platform, okay? You have the non-tangible, okay, which is the social networks. And then you have the tangible, which is the actual apartment, the actual car, the actual garage, the actual job, okay? I talk about this in my this is basically what my documentary was about, the job, the major, the career. It was a point in my life when I was early in college, when I was really getting down the idea that these are the things that I should be striving for and not a few of my favorite things, which is the chain, the reputation, the facade. Okay? So you're at your lunch table. You haven't made it to college yet. The older guys, okay? Get in the mind of Marty McFly, okay? I was the Marty McFly of my high school, the Steve Urkel of my high school, the nerd, the boy meets world, until the guys that were seniors and juniors moved on. The successful ones graduated and went to college, graduated from college and are doing well. The ones that didn't, they had to move on. So they didn't technically elevate, but they advanced. And they either ended up in jails, institutions, or they passed away, or they're still flaking off, wondering what their next meal is going to come from, what they're going to do as far as, their plans for the future, who they're going to be with as far as life partners, or if they even see themselves being with one ever. Okay. So, you have that battle. What is that? The battle of the egos. In high school, you have battle of the egos. In college, you have a battle of the egos. In your work, in your job, and your career, all of life, you have a battle of egos. It doesn't mean you necessarily take part in it, but it does exist. As you know, the I think it's the Tao Te Ching says, life is a balance of dynamic opposites. The struggle between the two is how the balance of the universe is maintained. Okay, rivalry. No matter where you go, there's always rivalry, whether you know it or not, or whether you choose to pay attention to it, take part in it or not. Obviously, it's not a good thing to take part in rivalry, but it does exist. Okay? A person can be competitive, have a competitive edge. You obviously have to stay ahead of the curve, without feeding into, not only is this person competing for my position or competing for the spotlight, they're on some kill the competition. They don't want to just knock me out of the box. They want me out of the game permanently. Okay, you don't have to feed into that. How is this possible? Studying psychology. Having an advocate, having allies, having friends, having partners, and in order to do so, you have to have a platform, but also mostly having faith, having some type of belief. Okay. Now, what are some major things that took place in my life? 9/11, September 11th, 2001. The Twin Towers were hit by terrorists who took over planes. And this is something that a lot of people can't identify with that weren't alive during those times. I was 21. I took a class as of recently that discusses why terrorism happens. And, a lot of people don't even want to think about that. That is a very traumatic experience for people who weren't even alive. They have a hard time enough dealing with the fact that the coronavirus wiped out as many people as it did. A lot of people's grandparents died, etc. Just a lot of rules, a lot of new laws came into effect because of that. A new reality. But let's jog back a little bit. What was, before we do that, what was the main thing that happened during COVID. People had to wear masks. Some people are still wearing masks. Travel was limited. Crime went up. The price of food went up. The price of living went up. Apartments, houses on the market are just unaffordable for a lot of people. And it got real scary for a lot of people. Okay? So to be successful in the music industry, it's been said, if you make it here, you can make it anywhere. What are we talking about? New York, New York. Okay? Hollywood. There's 5 places that are synonymous with success, that if you live in these places, it's feasible for you to actually be in the music industry. New York, Hollywood, Atlanta, Miami, and Chicago. These 5 places, most people can accept that. And that part of the reason is that's where the major networks are, et cetera, et cetera. But to work in the fast food chain, all you got to do is just show up. To be a mechanic, just show up. Firefighter, just show up. Police officer, not only just show up, you have to really, really perform at that level every single day. You can't just show up. You have to show up and show out. Okay? To be a doctor, you have to show up and not necessarily show out. You have to show up and perform at that level. Lawyer, perform at that level. Even firefighter, perform at that level, etc. Those are those, professions. That's what I'm talking about as far as a profession and then a job. Okay? And then you have down here just existing. Okay? You got a job, you work at a fast food, or you're just getting money. Okay? Now, if you're in Pittsburgh, just existing is here. Every now and then something happens, but you're cool. You know what I mean? You're not like a lawyer. Holy shit, one day, you go to put your key in your car in your garage, and then counselor, the guy, whatever his name is, the Casey guy, Robert De Niro's character shows up. You don't have to deal with that. You're not a police officer. You go to pull somebody over to give them a ticket, and they try to drive away, or there's a firefight exchanged. Okay? Et cetera, et cetera. Your average day as a New Yorker, or somebody in Philly, or in Los Angeles, is virtually could be like the movie Menace to Society. Could be like Boys in the Hood. Because your average boy in the hood, even if it's just a suburban neighborhood, is potentially a menace to society. The same thing with females, is potentially something like the Joker's girlfriend, a vigilante gangster, not just a gangster. Okay? So you don't leave your bubble for that reason. You don't leave what I was saying earlier, your comfort blanket, your branch, the nest. Okay? They say the early bird gets the worm. What's the early bird? The person that leaves the nest, and not the one that waits for the bird who gets the worm to come back and regurgitate it in their mouth, because it might not be enough. And believe it or not, no mama bird does this, but not everybody has a mama bird. Not everybody has a father to go out and provide for them. Some people grow up by themselves. Or you get pushed out of the nest, so you have to fend for yourself. Okay? Those times of relying on your parents, it's over. In your 20s, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? Nobody takes care of their kids all their life. And even if they could, people don't live that long to do so, okay? Or if they do, people, they get exhausted. So you get pushed out to live on your own, or, you know, somebody takes care of you and you end up being a dependent. You know, somebody's your payee or whatever. You know, you get money from the government, but you don't even have the trust of the government to pay your own bills because you're not going to. So let's jog back a little bit. When it comes to artists, when it comes to people who make money unlawfully, let's say you sell bud. Let's say you sell some form of drug that's not bud, weed. Let's say you're a college student. You have some sort of income. Everybody 20s and up has some sort of income. Okay, obviously. Even younger people do. You know, there's a lot of prodigies that they come up with companies, or they start, you know, they go from a lemonade stand to being the inventor of the next Facebook faster these days. Okay? But you have some income. You leaving the porch separates you from a group of people that either stayed in that comfort bubble or that tax bracket because they were afraid, which is more so acceptable. I don't want to sound ignorant, but I'm not going to say acceptable. I'm going to say common. Or you have people that stay in a tax bracket or comfort zone. We're going to use those words interchangeably because they were depressed, which is, believe it or not very uncommon either, but not really acceptable. Okay? Believe it or not, it's not acceptable in today's society as it was in yesterday's society, as probably it will be in the future societies to come, to have mental health problems, to be depressed, to be dependent. It's not acceptable. Do people accept it? Yeah. But do people feel comfortable about taking care of other people that they're not related to, or even that they are related to? No. Will they tell you, I, or whoever they're taking care of, if we are one of those people, if we fall into this category? Not necessarily. And if they do, it's going to be sugar coated and watered down in a way that you believe it's okay, but it's not. Okay? Independence is one of those things that is strived for by people who have the fire under their ass. Okay? Not everybody does. I mean, there's people that should feel urgency, but there's people that literally don't. Okay? Why? Maybe it's them. Maybe it's the outer circumstances that are also contributing to this taking place. You know, you want to be a football player. Okay? The big man on campus doesn't want you to be the football player, because if you become a football player, you're probably going to go to the same college that he does. Not only that, you're going to go to first string and it's going to bump him down to second or third. He's going to be the dumb jock that never gets the garage and becomes a mechanic, and you're going to be the rapper that's not saying, hey, look at my chain. You're going to be the smart rapper who says, If I want to rap, I might as well put myself in this in the environment where success is inevitable by becoming a DJ and just saying, "Hey, I'll play the background and play people's records. Maybe somebody will discover me like a Dr. Dre, and I'll get to be Snoop Dogg. Somebody like Frank Sinatra will discover me. I'll get to be Sammy Davis for a day." Okay? So you work in a radio station, you're a DJ, and then somebody discovers you because you're right there interviewing everybody. The Beatles of your time have an interview with your radio station. They say, "Hey man, you're pretty funny. You got a nice personality, or you got an ear for music. I want you to come along with us. I want you to be a crooner, or I want you to be, our manager. Tell us what to do." Okay? So you never try out for that football team. You never try out for the basketball team, or you're like me, you play basketball, you get cut, you give up. You don't go back like Michael Jordan again until you make it after you're cut. Okay? These are not a few of my favorite things, but these are the make it and break it of people who become successful, and the killer of people who don't. Okay? Not everybody can handle defeat. Getting cut from a basketball team, going on stage and forgetting your verse. You forget your words. Somebody throws a bottle of water on stage. Anything. So you quit, and then you go back to working for McDonald's, and you've worked at McDonald's ever since your 20s, and you're 45 these days. You never traveled to Hollywood like I did. You never recorded in DJ Lazy K's studio. You never went to Miami. You never endured a hurricane like Hurricane Irma. You never worked for Jewish Community Services of South Florida. You never worked for Global Skyline on Wall Street in New York City. You never been there. I'm not saying because you never became as successful as me, or you never had the balls as me. I'm saying this as if you were me, if you never took the chance because you were afraid of failure. This is called the fear of flying. Okay? Imagine that. Imagine that. No job on Wall Street. No Hollywood memories of working in $1 million studio. No, ESPN commercial with no highlights. It's a battle of the egos, and you don't have one highlight. Okay? So what is your palette then? What is my palette then to paint this picture for my future as if it's a masterpiece? What is my masterpiece going to look like if I don't have one Rembrandt to compare my next Rembrandt to? It's been said, you're only as successful as your last hit record, as your last Rembrandt. What if you have no Rembrandt to compare and contrast to? What if you never left the porch? What if you never made a hit? Then it's going to be tough, because we're not only living in a brave new world, you're 45, okay? And once you're 50, you got more time behind you than you do ahead of you. So this is the reality of a lot of people that I could be identifying with. if we identify with people, unfortunately, who are not as successful as us or potentially could be, then we're not going to be as successful as we can be. This is the reason why people who have mentors, people who have role models, people who idolize people who are greater than them, people who look up to people who are more knowledgeable or wise than them, people who hang around people that are more competitive than them, people who do less talking and more listening, are people who tend to be more successful rather than people who hang around people who don't pose a threat or any competition. People who will just say, oh yeah, that's the shit, man. Yeah, I like that. Play that shit again. Or, nah, there's nothing wrong with your approach to life. You should actually stay home another day and not go to work. So, but this is the reality of not just today's world, the world in general. Okay? And it's called the comfort zone. Okay? The comfort zone. Welcome to the comfort zone, where people don't strive to do more because more hurts. You get on that motorcycle, it's not a car. That's 2 wheels, not 4. One gust of wind, that's not a bump on your head. That's not a lump on the log either. That's broken bodies from your neck down. Okay? Now, nobody says being successful, you have to be Evel Knievel or David Copperfield or Houdini. You don't have to outdo yourself every day from straitjacket, underwater, chained, unpicking yourself to the next tightrope, to the next tightrope, to being the guy who puts the first foot on the moon. You don't have to. All you have to do is show up. All I have to do is show up to my career, my job, wherever my environment needs me to be, and show out. Show up and perform. You don't necessarily need to show out. Show up and perform at that standard, and that job will always be there. That platform will always be there. That garage, that house, that social network will always be there because I'll have money to pay for it. And not only that, I'll have the skill set to be able to sustain it. And the group of friends to help me sustain it, because my group of friends aren't like the guys and boys in the hood or menace to society. Or even if you want to look at it, in a suburban standpoint, you could look at it, this is not like an urban versus suburban. The movie Stand By Me. Those kids, they never grew up. There's countless movies like that. The Breakfast Club with Emilio Estevez. Okay? Peer pressure broke them. They weren't able to go above the influence and stay above the influence. Their addiction to drugs or their fear of their Keith or Sutherland caused them to stay under the iron grip of their bully, of their Goliath, of their pet peeve, of their phobia, of their phrenia. Okay? As opposed to people who have phrenias and phobias, but they don't let it control them because maybe they take their medication like they're supposed to, but not only that, they stay away from those people, places, and things that causes them to go to jails and institutions and death every time and be the gutter ball of their crew. Okay? Never left the comfort zone, never left the porch, never left the nest, never was the early bird, never got the worm. What is the worm? It's the idea that you can take care of yourself. It's independence. You're the breadwinner. Okay? Those who were traveling prior to the recession, whether you're traveling or not, because I travel less, you know, I made it a point a long time ago, even before the recession. One of my main goals, I want to finish college. And I've been in college ever since, even though I go to a technical school online. I've made a lot of leaps and bounds. And I'm not giving up until I have at least my associate's degree or some form of CNA, certified, which is certified nurse's assistant for those who don't know, something tangible, CDL, something that is sustainable when it comes to the kind of lifestyle that I want to live, that I see myself living in the future. But those people, I remember, back in the day before I lived in New York, working on Wall Street for the small time that I did. I wasn't working on the New York Stock Exchange. I was working at a small time marketing firm called Global Skyline. And what we did technically was, it was a startup firm that did one thing, but what I did was I went to the office and I met with the group, and then we went out. We were working with Assurance Wireless. That was one of our campaigns at the time that I was working, and I just provided Assurance Wireless cell phones for people who had SSI, in the Bronx and Harlem. We met on Wall Street and John, and got the phones, took them to the Bronx, took them to Harlem, 125th Street or whatever, and provided them, and then went back and dropped off the phones that we didn't provide, and then just repeated the cycle. Whatever everybody else did is what they did, because everybody wasn't a part of the campaign that I was a part of. Prior to me going to Miami to be discovered, I discovered this thing called Coast to Coast Live, where you can perform for money. And while I was down there in Miami, I got a day job. One day I was sitting at the place that I was staying, and somebody came in, hey, who wants a job? I was like, me. What do we do? Go over there to this office. They're interviewing people to work on the beach. Say less. I went over there. So what do? So you clean up Flamingo Park. They give you a broom and a dustpan. You pick up the litter, and that's a day. You get a 2-week paycheck. Jewish Community Services of South Florida was a temp service that hooked up a lot of people with jobs that needed it. I was one of the early birds that got the worm. Okay. Scrolling on my Instagram, looking for people to collaborate with. I was sending emails to everybody, all the big celebrities. Hey, I'm Prince Rao. Help me get discovered. I'm good. Da-da-da-da-da. Suddenly I see something that says DJ Lazy K mixtape slot. Get on this slot, X amount of dollars or whatever. You can be featured on a mixtape on livemixtapes.com. I was like, cool. There was a number. I called it up, and I was like, yo, so how do I do this? These are the prices. And then also, like, if you want to record in the actual studio, I got discounts for that. I'm like, really? Okay, cool. Let's do this. So I ended up going to Los Angeles again after I left. I was already living there, in Compton. I went back just to record, and I did. Okay? But imagine me being somebody else. You're scrolling through your timeline. Wow, Los Angeles? That's dangerous. I'm not going. I'm scared. These are some of the things that make and break people's careers. But me, these are a few of my favorite things. So there has to be a split. There has to be a breakup there has to be an expanse. God created the day and called the day day. God created the night and called the night night. At the end of the day, he said it was good and moved on to another day and never looked back, because God don't make mistakes. Okay? Not everybody got that mentality. But people that got that mentality are beast mode. People that got that mentality are champions. People that got that mentality are successful because they never looked back. It's not easy to do. It's not. Imagine River Phoenix not hanging out with his best friend on Stand By Me. Okay? Who else? What's the, Cuba Gooding. Imagine Cuba Gooding not, like if Ricky didn't die in Boys in the Hood. Imagine him not hanging out with Cuba Gooding. You can't. It's like Laverne and Shirley. It's like Ricky and Lucy. It's like Seinfeld with no Elaine. He could deal with no Costanza because Costanza is annoying. He could deal with no Kramer because Kramer just comes in unannounced. But Elaine, I don't know. That's not that easy. But if you can, and Seinfeld could, just like Frasier could coexist without his brother, just like Charlie Sheen could coexist without his brother because he was the breadwinner. Switch shoes on the feet. Could the brother coexist without Charlie? Probably not. Could Elaine coexist without Seinfeld? Probably not. Could the brother coexist without Frasier? Probably not. But the breadwinner could, and this is what it means to be a pioneer, not just a trendsetter, an entrepreneur, not just a freelancer, a leader, not just somebody who's able to maintain and keep up with the Joneses, independent, and not somebody who's just, they found that happy medium and they're able to coast, etc. So we're living, I'm not going to say in perilous times, but in times of uncertainty. Living in times of uncertainty. This is a class that you can take on Coursera at Yale. You could audit it. You could take it for, I think it's like 50 something bucks. Like, what do you got to lose? There's another class you could take at Yale. It's called Mind Control, Managing Your Mental Health During COVID-19. Not Mind Control, I'm focusing so I can move this object with telekinesis. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about keeping your head on your shoulders. I'm talking about not only staying ahead of the curve, but being excited about the next day when you wake up in the morning. If you do a consensus and you ask your average person walking down the street, how excited do you feel about waking up each day? Not everybody's going to say at all, let alone, oh man, I feel fucking great. I feel fantastic. Because not everybody has something to look forward to, okay? Prior to the recession, the depression, the Great Depression, and then I don't know if it was the 50s or the 20s, everybody was working on Wall Street. Everybody was working in steel mills. And the economy was booming, okay? But when the economy is not booming, not everybody knows where the next mill is coming from. So therefore, that excitement is not there, okay? But people are traveling again. People are doing shows. The NFL is back. You know, basketball, baseball. You know, and it's been like this for a while. Okay, people. Not everybody has to wear masks, etc., etc. We have a president who is revitalizing things and bringing back the economy to what it was, restabilizing it. But there's still a lot of people who are trolls or coattail holders. followers. Okay. Which one are you? Okay. So take the class, Managing Your Mental Health During the Times of Uncertainty, Managing Your Mental Health During COVID-19 Mind Control at Yale on Coursera.org. But also contact me on Zoom whenever I have my Zoom meetings, and email me at stackbooksfoundation@gmail.com. This is a great discussion I would love to discuss with people. This is today's Donnie's Talks. Staying ahead of the curve. Is this brave new world a brave new world without you? Or are you brave and is this world not so new? Okay? Let's get money. And again, I look forward to talking to you. Splash.